just briefly with name and organization, and then I'm not sure where we want to start. We don't have to be linear here. We can hop around. And I'm going to have each of them go through and, give a brief description of sort of what their organization does, what kinds of interns or full-time positions are available, what types of skill sets they're looking for, maybe a little bit about what the culture's like and what they look for in candidates who might fit well. And then we certainly can have some discussion and Q&A. Okay? So a big thanks to everyone who's here. We have Kate Blake from Transamerica, Aaron Balls from Ruffalo Cody, Meredith May Gall, got that right, from the Peace Corps, and also Shane Schimmel from Summer of the Arts. So we have a nice mix of for-profits, not-for-profits, which is what we had hoped to bring. So we really appreciate you being here. Anybody want to get started?
Well, I can start. Okay. So my name's Kate Blake, and I'm the internship coordinator at Transamerica. And Transamerica is located in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And the Cedar Rapids location is actually our headquarters for the Americas. We are a global company, and so if you're familiar with Aegon is our parent company. It's a Dutch company located in The Hague in the Netherlands. And then the Americas, Cedar Rapids is the headquarters. And so we have about 3,500 employees in Cedar Rapids, and so very major employer in that area. In the U.S., we have around 12,000 employees, and then globally around 25,000. And what we do, we're in financial services. So our main business lines are going to be the life insurance products, and then also the retirement, annuities, and investment products. So our two main areas that we provide. Our goal really with our customers is to help people take responsibility for their financial future. So that's really what we want to accomplish within our company. Then with the intern program, we have around 125 internships every year. All different time frames, all of our internships are paid. And they range from full-time during the summer, full-time during a semester. We have part-time opportunities during the school year that works great for Iowa students. And really all different areas for what a student might be pursuing. So definitely the areas of IT, accounting, finance, actuarial, we have those opportunities. We also have positions within communications, marketing, and within our retirement division, they hire a group of 12 interns every summer, and they're very open to any major. So I think we do have opportunities for any student, especially if they're looking for a business or a corporate experience, that's something we can provide them. And then on the full-time side, just many opportunities as well, especially in Cedar Rapids. Being that that's the headquarters for the Americas, we usually have in Cedar Rapids. I think when I looked, the last was around 175 openings in Cedar Rapids, and then with our whole in the U.S., I think we have over 300. So we just always have a lot of different openings available for many different backgrounds and majors. And I think just some of the main skills that we would look for then are going to be the communication skills for sure. And so oral and written communication is very important. Also, initiative, leadership, willing to grow, willing to learn our business, even like positive attitude and enthusiasm for what they're going to be doing, and some other areas, organization, time management, some of those skills, and I'm sure we'll talk about those later, but those would be some key areas I think that we look for in our interns and on the full-time side as well.
My name's Aaron Balls. I'm a senior recruiter with Ruffalo Cody. We are out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Basically, kind of give you an idea what our business does. We work with the nonprofit sector, and specifically, really 90% of our business is with higher education clients. And we work in two different arenas. I'm really helping designing and often operationally managing their campaigns in the areas of maybe Bonathon in the fundraising vein, and then also within enrollment management, which is our fastest, probably growing division. So we're involved with the admissions departments. It's a lot of data-oriented campaign design. We're going to do a lot of the marketing piece that comes along with every campaign, direct mail, whatever kind of cross-functional. marketing tools they want to utilize. Our clients doing their campaigns, we'll work with them on that, and then of course helping on the execution end, we need the operational. So in the phone-a-thon end, we're actually on campus. Iowa's a client of ours, so we work with the foundation down here at the same time. And then enrollment management, it's going to be more of a survey-oriented call to students potentially to get them on campus to meet with a counselor, admissions counselor at that point. So a wide variety of positions that are available, I mean, anywhere from the technical all the way to the creative end of things. So I do encounter a lot of students, a lot of Iowa students, honestly, that do come work for us and stuff, especially in the areas of writers, graphic designers, more of those marketing-oriented positions probably, and then an entry-level supervision or program management, to be honest with you. So do run into a lot of students there, seeing skill sets the same as Kate. Communication's the big one nowadays. We might get somebody in that can write copy in like 5 seconds, but then if they encounter a client, they kind of clam up a little bit, how to handle that communication. And so on the verbal end of things, a lot of times that ends great communication stuff in there and stuff in the programs of liberal arts. Being a liberal arts student myself, I kind of understand that from a previous time in my life. But we do encounter a lot of students. So.
Hi, I'm Meredith. I'm the Peace Corps recruiter for the University of Iowa. Peace Corps is an incredible opportunity for students to really have an extended experience in a developing country, where they can really use their skills that they've gained in their liberal arts or any degree to help a community in need, but also to grow so much themselves personally and professionally. So it's 27 months, 3 months of training in the country, language, culture, skills, health and safety, followed by 2 years living in a specific community. And while, I like to say, while it's volunteer, it's all expense paid. It doesn't cost anyone. No one needs money to come into the Peace Corps. Everything is paid for them, including health insurance, living stipend, all of that. And they also have some nice benefits at the end, about $8,000 as a readjustment allowance, and also fellowships specifically for graduate school, for return volunteers, and also special eligibility for federal jobs. So those students who might be thinking long-term, working for the U.S. government, it's a really nice in. I just want to very briefly say, in case you're very familiar with Peace Corps in the past, this is a brand new application process, and so students can actually search online, see what openings are currently available. Like if they're seniors right now, it's June through November departures that they can see online, and see what skill sets are being looked for and all of that as well. And they can choose to apply for a very specific country if they want. They can remain flexible to go wherever they're needed, or they can say, I want to do this program, this country. So liberal arts majors are really well suited to Peace Corps, and in fact, in the last data that came out of currently serving Peace Corps volunteers, the top 5 majors in Peace Corps are liberal arts majors. So they are definitely make up a large majority of the people that are in the Peace Corps. It's also really great for liberal arts majors because a lot of them don't have a clear career path, and I think what Peace Corps helps with is they give a lot of experiences in a lot of different areas, some real world experiences, and those are skills that they can bring back and help them to get their next step. And then also it's really life-changing experience. A lot of them define their passions and career paths while in the Peace Corps, and it gives them an opportunity to really do that. The qualities that make them a successful volunteer, I mean, the main ones are flexibility, adaptability. This experience is never what anyone thinks it's going to be. It's always going to be different for everybody, and you have to learn to adjust to a different culture, adjust to whatever your living situation is, which may or may not be running water and electricity. There's lots of flexibility and adaptability. A sense of humor. You're going to look ridiculous. You don't know what you're doing in another culture all the time, and even though you have training, you can never totally prepare. And being able to laugh at yourself a lot is just a really important quality. Patience. Things don't happen quickly often in developing countries. Resourcefulness, positive attitude, and cross-cultural and social sensitivity. As far as those transferable skills that liberal arts majors have, let me just give you an example. So one of my favorite examples is a volunteer who served with me in Botswana. She was a teacher. So volunteers just do a lot of different things as an example, and there's larger and smaller scales, but she's a teacher, she's teaching English. Her girls aren't coming to school regularly in the small village. They're not doing their homework. Okay, so she has to problem solve, a skill that liberal arts majors are developing. Okay, so she has to problem solve. She thinks, okay, why aren't they coming to school? She starts talking to people. She gathers information. Okay, it's because they have to haul water from the river every day, quite a distance for their families, and the girls are doing all this. All right, so she starts thinking, well, what if we had a well in our community? Okay, does she know anything about wells? No, I mean, she's a liberal arts major who's teaching English in the Peace Corps. So she looks into opportunities, but she also has to be kind of a leader and gather support. This has to be something the community wants, the community is interested and invested in. So she's got to motivate people, using her communication skills. Then she has to research, just thinking about building a well. And she doesn't have to become an expert herself, but she has to figure out how to get those resources and figure out what resources are in the community already, what knowledge is here, what do we need to bring from outside. So she has to do the research part. And then, there needs to be funding somehow. Peace Corps volunteers write a lot of grants. So writing skills really, really important. She's going to write the grant, and then they're going to, then she's going to lead this project, not do the work herself, but with the community kind of coordinate it. So like project management, leadership. And so all those kinds of transferable skills come into play all the time in the small and big things that Peace Corps volunteers do. And again, really that cross-cultural awareness, the ability to learn another language, either know it already or the ability to learn another one or learn a first one, which I think is required for liberal arts majors at first. To work well as a team. And a big one is to work in an unstructured environment. An environment that can be fairly ambiguous and you don't have somebody telling you what your daily plan is, I would say. And just some experiences that I would say that people can get to become more competitive and definitely make themselves applicable, any student in liberal arts majors, is some community involvement, some volunteer experience. That shows a commitment to serving. Sometimes there's volunteers or people that come into me that have had a lot of volunteer experiences, but it's like I did 2 hours here and then I did 3 hours here. But like a longer term commitment to something like Summer for the Arts or a specific organization where they've done it so many hours a week for a semester. And also student leadership is that's about, we consider that volunteering, you're giving to your community and taking on leadership, planning, opportunities to teach others, lead others types of situations. With liberal arts majors, we work in major sectors in the Peace Corps, so there's education, health, environment, agriculture, youth, and community economic development. And Peace Corps looks at all of your life skills to figure out which sectors you would be feasible for. But some liberal arts majors oftentimes have that already, but if they don't, they might need to get some volunteer experience in those areas. So tutoring English in order to qualify, or tutoring a foreign language to qualify for English teaching, or doing some health education volunteer work here in the community. Working on a farm if they want to do agriculture over the summer. So they can qualify in a lot of different ways, and I'm happy to help them figure out, what do I need to do if I'm not, what am I already qualified for in the Peace Corps, and then what is it that I need to do to get a little more qualified if I'm not. And it's the only last thing I'm going to say is when liberal arts majors, like I said, they're making incredible volunteers, and they serve in the Peace Corps, but when they go on the website, they might get overwhelmed because it's not, right now, the way the new website is what do you want to do when you search the database? And it's those major sectors. And if you don't have a clear career path and you've got a political science major, it is not clear which button you would start to look under, and then to look through 100 and some positions is overwhelming. So please feel free to direct them to me and I can help focus them and reiterate they are needed in the Peace Corps and I can help them navigate that.
I'm Shane Schummel. I'm the Associate Executive Director for Summer of the Arts, and we're a nonprofit umbrella organization that produces and manages about 6 festivals and events that happen in downtown Iowa City each year. Our mission is really to bring people together in the heart of Iowa City to experience and learn about and enjoy the arts. We want the arts to be available for everybody. Everything that we offer at our festivals are free. We don't ticket for the concerts. The events that we have include the Iowa Arts Festival, which is generally the first weekend of June. We have Music I See, which is our newest festival. It'll be going into its 3rd year this coming summer. That's classical or chamber music and literature together. It's our only indoor festival. We have the Iowa City Jazz Festival, which will be its 25th year. This year we're excited about that. That is primarily focused on jazz music. We have the Iowa Soul Festival, which is our only festival that takes place during the academic year. So that's primarily the one that students really know more about if they're not here during the summertime. We also have the Friday Night Concert Series, which is in about its 22nd or 23rd year. We're still digging back in that history to figure that out. And the Free Movie Series, which just had its 10th year. So we have a range of arts, music, movies. On our stages, we also have dance, sometimes spoken word. So there's a lot of art for everybody. Each of our weekend-long festivals, which are arts, jazz, and soul, they have usually an artist component, a main stage, a family stage, a children's activity, and something that's really important to our organization is our green initiative. So we have a really strong green initiative where we're offering composting, recycling of aluminum and plastic, as well as landfill. And we try to avoid having as much go into the landfill as a result of our festivals as possible. We only have 3 full-time staff members, and we generally have 10 to 16 interns that we hire each year unpaid. And those interns range from having to have very specific skills to personality characteristics that we are looking for. We're looking for logistics and event planning, communication and marketing, performer relations, volunteer relations, artist relations. Graphic design is one of those very specific. We have to have someone who has experience with graphic design and knows those programs well, because we don't. So as a small nonprofit, we are dependent on our interns to help us get our work done that we need to do. Photography, business and sponsor relations, multimedia, and our green initiative. And what we're looking for in interns that we hire, our primary thing is initiative. We really want to see students who are willing to come in with ideas. We can do the same thing year after year, but we really embrace and enjoy that we have students that can come to us and say, have you ever thought about doing it this way? And that they're not afraid to speak up and give their ideas. And we find that a lot of them are afraid to do that because they feel that they're not worthy or they don't have enough experience to have their idea matter. And so we really make that clear from the beginning that initiative and coming forward with that is important. And also being able to do something with their time when we're busy. So 3 full-time staff doing our own work as well as supervising 16 interns. There's always going to be a time that we can't get to somebody. So if they can't figure it out, if they can't come to us, we want them to use all the measures they can to help figure out what they need. Communication is another really important skill. Not being afraid to say, I don't know how to do that, because there's nothing worse than giving somebody a project and then checking in, they're like, yeah, it's okay, yeah, we're doing okay. And then 3 weeks later, when it's a day from being due, I really didn't understand how to do that. So being able to have those communication skills, both verbal, email, phone skills, is something that so many of the students don't have anymore. They're afraid to pick up that phone. They're constantly texting for their communication or emailing. And so when we tell people they need to call artists who are coming into our community who are 68, 70 years old and who aren't going to text or do emails and are not comfortable with that, then they really freak out, and we sometimes do role playing with phone conversations for them to help get them in a more comfortable situation. It would be great if they were coming to us already comfortable with that. We do require that every intern rotate through with picking up our phone and just answering the phone when it rings to force them into that phone communication. Leadership is another thing that we're looking for. When we get resumes in, we are looking for students who have been RAs, who have been in a professional organization related to their major or their interest levels. If we have a senior that is submitting a resume and they've never been involved in any campus activities, if they've not had any leadership roles, they're going to go to the bottom of our pile. We are looking for people who can be a leader on our team, because again, with only 3 staff people, we're at a festival where there is 25,000 people, we need our staff to all be strong and be able to handle things. The ability to learn and apply new skills quickly. So we often ask these types of questions in our interview process to try to get to the heart of, do they have these skills that we're looking for? And we don't quiz them, but it's more of a conversation about, tell us about a time that you had to learn something, think on your feet. A demonstrated history with teamwork is really important, because we are a team. Each of our internships has focus areas, graphic design or logistics or performer relation, but we also have all hands on deck, and we expect that when we have to put up no parking signs, you may be a graphic designer and you're not designing that sign, but you can rubber band it to the parking meter to show you're part of our team. The ability to present positively and professionally is a huge one. Our environment is artsy. We're pretty laid back. People can wear jeans into our office. We're in the summertime, so people can wear a ponytail and sandals and shorts. But we have addressed, no holes in your jeans. And if we have a meeting, you should come dressed up. You should comb your hair. We have sometimes people who are rolling out of bed and they come into the office. And if we have a sponsor coming in, we don't want them. We know they're college students, but we want them to be presenting professionally. Problem solving is a big one. At our festivals, there are often things that go wrong. And with 3 staff people, we need those interns to be able to think on their feet and problem solve, but also know when to draw the line and say, I need you to wait here for a minute, I need to go get a supervisor and make sure that this will work. Time management and task management. Being able to prioritize what I need to do is, not what I need to do, but what they need to do is really important. Having goals, even if they don't know what they want to do for a career and they're exploring that, to come into an interview process and we say, what goals do you have? What are some goals that you're working on? And they say, right now I don't really know. I don't know what I want to do. To be able to spin that around and say, my goals right now are to explore different career areas so I can find something that I love to do. So just to be able to communicate positively, because that communication to us is an indication of what their communication to other people when they're representing us is going to be. Our interns usually work January through September, so it's a very long internship for them. We encourage our interns to take class credit if possible, because then they're not having to fit us in along with classes. They can just merge that right into their schedule. Our internships range in hours per week that they're required, so if they are doing it for class, they have to have a minimum of 10 hours per week. But sometimes people are doing 20, sometimes people are just doing it for the experience, so they will work 6 hours a week. Or our graphic designers sometimes will come in and work 3 hours a week in the office, but they'll go home and work on projects. And so we can be pretty flexible. We always tell our students that we appreciate that they are students first, and we want that to be their primary goal. So if somebody has an exam coming up, we're arts organization, again, it's pretty flexible. We don't have a lot that has to be on a strict schedule. So if they say, I'm stressed out, I need to stay home and study, we can usually make that happen for them. We're located right downtown, so people can come and do their shift with us and then go to a class pretty easily. I think that's about it for.
Well, thank you. One of the things that I wanted to circle back to Kate and Aaron on, you actually gave a good sort of overview of different transferable skills, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to comment on, are there personal attributes or characteristics that you sort of look for in candidates so that they would be a good fit with your overall sort of culture of the organization? And I know Meredith and Shane went into that in a little more detail, so I'm going to circle back and see if you wanted to add something for your respective organization.
I would describe our culture as very friendly. It's a flat organization, so that just means that it's not so much about titles and you don't have access to certain leaders, and it's not really that type of organization. I mean, even our senior leaders and vice president level leaders at our company, they're very willing to come in and speak to interns, just regarding their division or their career path. And we also have a Build Your Network program that interns and really any full-time employee could also do this. It just wouldn't be a formal program, but for the interns, we have a Build Your Network program, and that allows the interns they have access to meet with anyone they want at the company. And in Cedar Rapids, being that that's our corporate headquarters, we have a lot of high-level people who live in Cedar Rapids and work in that office. And, people at the CEO level, CFO, so I think that that's really great that the interns have that opportunity to, really meet with anyone. I think really anyone at the company could really do that same thing. So it's just a very, very helpful environment. I think people are definitely willing to help you or answer questions. You have that access to leaders. It's not like they're off limits or they're kind of off in their own area and they really aren't involved with the organization. You see that throughout the day. And so I think that, and like I said, kind of going back to the just friendly culture, we definitely work really hard within the company, but then I think too that the people, it's such a great group of people in so many different departments. I mean, I've worked with, different business units and, just really great people. When we've done our employee survey, a lot of the feedback is always, I really enjoyed the team I work on, my coworkers are so great, and that really makes this such a great experience. And so then I think just when we're looking for those great people, then I think with qualities or what makes someone a good fit is, especially just when we talk to students that just career fairs or networking nights, and we're just looking for people that are also friendly and enthusiastic and interested in what we do and interested in helping people, just really interested in being on the team and contributing and being just outgoing, wanting to get to know people. I mean, I feel like a lot of our teams, you are close with your team members. I know I am on my team, and so just I think that willingness or wanting to get to know your coworkers, even being involved in just other opportunities within the company that could help you develop, whether it's like different committees or a professional network that we have. It's just, I think it's a really welcoming environment, and I've seen that across like different business units. So I think just people that want to get to know their coworkers and just genuinely care about the people they work with, and I think that's definitely a reason that I enjoyed working at Transamerica. So I think that would be how I would describe our culture.
From a culture standpoint, I think it's a loose culture at times. We still try to operate like we're 100 employees, but we're not anymore. So we're going through those growing pains as a company itself, which isn't always easy. So people that really do excel, even from an entry level standpoint, that come in, they get to know the business right away, and then they want to know it, and they thrive to know it. They get to know all the cross-functional aspects of the campaign, the user analytical skills to help really develop campaigns and find new process, obviously more efficient processes, things of that nature. So those are definitely the people that can fit into a looser culture, but then not take advantage of the looser culture at the same time. Because when the work gets tough, and we kind of had that trouble having hired so many entry level in the last 2 or 3 years. It's really easy to see who rises to the top fast, to be honest with you, and who's going to succeed in culture. But it's definitely wanting to know the business, I think. We do provide an interesting path into a different world that's kind of shielded from the public eye, which is a blessing and a curse from a recruitment standpoint too, but definitely you can tell the motivated students, the ones that are going to have that skill set. It's not an overinflated sense of motivation. It's real, genuine. So we kind of use, in the interview standpoint, it's going to be more situational, obviously behavioral based, and it does help, to be honest with you, when selecting. Our hiring managers hate interviewing themselves, so it's something that we've had to install them too, but at the same time, you get good and bad hires, but in our environment, it's really easy to identify after someone gets to know the business of who's going to survive, to be honest with you, who's not going to be interested in it anymore how it works. So you do have to adapt to that. You're not just going to be a communications, marketing writer type position. You're going to be on a cross-functional team, so you're going to have to understand campaign timelines, data. You really got to be on top of that. That takes a pretty well-rounded student, to be honest with you, especially coming in from an entry-level standpoint to be able to facilitate that. We don't have it, so we do look for like a lot of the same things. That volunteer aspect, committees, all that stuff that's huge, especially in a leadership role, or even in a support role, because they've got to know how to have that cross-functional capabilities.
I think we can train people on
Yeah.
our business, but some of those other
Train the other soft
qualities,
skills.
you can't make someone have a certain personality or something.
We try.
So I think, yeah, we can definitely train our business so you become familiar, and having that background, especially when you come in, it can be very overwhelming coming into our company, but we try and tell our interns, just don't worry about it. We know we're really big, we know we use a lot of acronyms, and you're not going to know what you're talking about, but you'll pick that up as you're there. We'll definitely teach you, about our business or about the position, so you don't have to come in and feel like you have to know all this stuff already, and we're definitely, don't be afraid to ask questions. We tell our interns that all the time, and I think that goes for a full-time employee as well. Just definitely don't be afraid to ask questions. And also I think flexibility, because we're usually always going through some kind of changes within the company, so just being able to be flexible, adapt, I think that can be really helpful as well. And seeing change is a positive, because it's always going to be happening, and not being afraid of it. I know it can be very uncertain and everything, but just I think being more positive or open to embracing change or a way of doing something, because it's just not going to stay the same.
No. Yeah, that's great. That's the new corporate role.
Yeah, I think that's the new world that we're
And
in.
it's
We've seen it in
just-
higher ed too.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's
You
just
know.
the new way. We had, just quickly, this isn't as in-depth of a response, but we had some questions that related to, and oftentimes we get questions from students about their academic achievement, so things about minimum GPA requirements, and if there's a screening process for that, and then also for some of our students who are doing really well, or maybe who are part of an honors program or have that designation, is that something that's helpful to see promoted? And so those two kind of went from each other.
So we look at that on resumes, but it's not the most important thing for us.
Okay.
Because if somebody has a 4.0 GPA and they highlight that, but they're not involved in anything else, that's not as attractive to us. We want to see more of a well-balanced person, and we're often pleasantly surprised when that GPA is thrown in there and it's a higher one. We think, okay, they're managing their time well, because look at all these other things they have experience with doing and have that. Sometimes people put their GPA on there when they really shouldn't, because then we go, oh, really? So that's how we look at it. When somebody is in the honors program, we do look at that as a leadership characteristic, that they are going above and beyond and have consistently strived at that level for themselves, and that we know that that's goal setting, that somebody just doesn't fall into the honors program. So that's kind of our take on.
So most of the programs, there isn't a minimum GPA, except if they want to work in the education sector, teach. They need to have a minimum of 2.5 GPA. The other sectors, there's not a stated one. I mean, obviously, a higher GPA is attractive, but again, if all you have is a good academic record, you're not probably going to make it through the process of being a Peace Corps volunteer. The other aspects are going to be the fact that you've taken on some kind of leadership, that you've been involved, is much more important than the GPA itself, as long as you have a respectable GPA. And I think putting it on the resume, it's going to be in the application as well, so it's going to be there. But if you're in honors, if you've studied abroad, if you've done a project that's relevant to what you're applying for, those kinds, like an honors project, a study abroad experience, those types of things should definitely be on the resume.
Yeah, it's less relevant than it probably was. It's like work history too. I mean, a lot of that stuff's becoming less relevant from the standpoint of what employers are looking for. So it's there sometimes. I don't really, to be honest with you, unless I have a required position and ask for it, I don't even look at it, to be honest with you. And degrees, honestly, are getting less and less relevant as programs become more diverse. It might not be the major anymore either. So a lot of this stuff is kind of, we're preparing for a shortage of workers. There's just no way around it. And so how do we prepare our cultures to be able to hire outside of your traditional routes of business or anything of that nature too, which is education on our part too. But it's less and less relevant, you know.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think there are positions that we have where GPA, it's not like it's even, it might weigh more, but I know like just for information, I know like with our accounting, finance, actuarial positions, IT, the hiring managers, when I've reviewed resumes with them, if it's not on there, they'll assume it's very low. And they might assume it's lower than what it actually is. So that's another way to look at that. And, you know, I do definitely think, you know, if it's maybe below the 3 point, you know, especially if you're looking at more of the, if you're not going into one of those heavy business fields, I really don't think it's going to be as important like what they had said. I think for any of those roles, we're going to be looking for that well-rounded person in any of our positions, even if it is on the heavy business side. We're still looking at, you know, what else are you involved in? And so I just always encourage students, like, just always try and do your best within your academic programs, but try and take on some leadership roles or get a lot of different experiences while you're in school. But I've seen some hiring managers take that approach when they've not seen the GPA. So it's, you know, it's always like, do you put it on there or not, you know? And I know if it's not been on there, we'll ask the student what it is. You know, that may just be, you know, I think every company might do that differently as well. So it probably, I think it really just depends on the position, you know, and, you know, some positions, if it's more technical, like the finance or actuarial or something, you know, we're having that strong academic background really relates to that role so much that we want to make sure you did well. But in something more, like in the liberal arts, where there's so many other skills you're bringing in, then it's not as like technical, so I think it can just depend on the position.
When somebody lists their GPA that is a very high GPA and they have a lot of activities or honors and things too, one of the questions we will always ask is, what do they do to relieve stress? Because if somebody has that high of a GPA and they have a lot of activities and they're in honors and they're just overachieving on every level, we don't want them to come to us and be completely burned out and not have time to really think and apply themselves to what we need them to do. So any job can get to a high stress point, and so we want to make sure what you do to have personal time.
Yeah, because of behavioral interview, and one of the questions is, you know, tell us what a stressful situation you've been in, how did you cope with the stressful situation?
And a lot of times if you are involved, and that's excellent to look at too, but it's going to slow down a little bit when you're professional, a little bit when you can all get and handle how that transition will go and have, you know, control over it, to be honest with you. Sometimes that stuff. Balance, yeah.
I want to turn it over to the audience. I have some more questions, but I covered some of the ones that came in earlier. So as you've been sitting here, I'm sure there are probably things that have popped into your head that you may want to ask one or more of the folks. So I will turn it over to you guys. We'll have a few minutes before we wrap. Other things you're curious about? Questions you get from students that you...
I have a question. You probably have interns or people that have worked for you from other institutions as well. Is there anything that sets the University of Iowa students apart from, you don't have to like say other institutions or anything, but are there some characteristics that our students come in really, that they're really good at, and maybe the things that they need to work on too?
Great question. Yeah.
You know, it depends. You know, if let's say I'm recruiting Iowa though, and I look at a UNI student compared to an Iowa student, their backgrounds are different. I mean, it might be more rural there and stuff.
Right.
So maybe their ethics or work ethics, I should say, are a little bit different. That doesn't mean it's bad. Or maybe there's more potential with them to stick around and, you know, not have some flight or something like that, responding to be hired from out of state students too. So it's different maybe from a background standpoint, but as far as what skill sets students bring to the table, not much. I mean, it's a generational thing, I think, from the standpoint of what it is, but I do see, I mean, I guess maybe from a project standpoint, it depends if it's real program specific that we get into and how prepped the student is, you know. It's a little different. If you look here at, like, I consider the students that come out like communications and PR and some of those good journal and stuff, they're heavily prepared up here. Maybe compared to other institutions, they put them on a, you know, pretty heavy program pack to, and other skill sets they have to learn on top of that. So they're a lot more varied in what they bring to the table from, you know, just technological standpoint, software standpoints, and things of that nature. So in the liberal arts field, you know, but then I look at a program like, but that's more business oriented too and stuff. So it's tough. I think it's just really program specific from that standpoint.
You all have exposure, I'm sure, to folks from all different kinds of institutions, so.
I feel like the really incredible students, are at every like the ones that are going to do well and be a great fit for Peace Corps. I find them at every institution, and I'm just always so impressed with the members I meet here who have such passion and been so involved in whatever their passions are here at the university, or have tried a lot of different things to figure that out. When I look back at what I think my experience was and what attitudes and knowledge and skills I had coming out of an undergrad years ago compared to what they've done as far as leading and being involved, I'm pretty impressed.
And I should say that having hired, like, we have to hire from a lot of divine quote unquote institutions, you know, from the Vanderbilts of the world stuff for our program center management. It is really level field as far as it does in the students that come out that become, you know, our Phonoton managers on campus and that stuff. So there isn't a lot of wide ranging division anymore between institutions, I don't think. It does very fast. Yeah.
So things that we see everywhere though that everybody can improve on is keeping a resume to 1 page. We still get 3-page resumes, and it's just too much. They need to know how to condense down to a single page. Also, what a cover letter is and what a cover letter isn't. It's just not a bullet pointed summary of the resume. And so we still, I just got one last week that was a student from Iowa that needs to come here and get some help because I don't think they've been here. Also, we do a Facebook check on every applicant. And I know that they hear that in places, but they still don't realize that they can protect their Facebook pages. And I had one situation in particular where everything on the resume was golden. We were like so excited and had this resume, oh, this person's gonna be great, we can't wait to get in and interview them. And I did the Facebook check, and the pictures, the F-bomb, just all over, quotes underneath their picture of things. And so I picked up the phone and gave the person a call and said, hi, I met you, and this wasn't this year, it was probably a year or so ago, and you have an outstanding resume, we were really excited to get your resume. And he was all, yes, great, no, that's great. And I said, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to ask you to come in for an interview. And it was just silent. And he said, I'm confused. And I said, we do Facebook checks on all of our applicants. And he goes, oh God, oh, I know exactly, oh. And I'm so embarrassed, I'm so sorry. And I said, well, I'm calling you because you do have great potential. And there's a lot of people I probably wouldn't bother to call. But you can control this. And while we won't ask you in for an interview this year, maybe you can get yourself, in order, and you'll be more marketable to somebody else. But that's you're a reflection of our company. And if we send you out and you're talking to a sponsor or a community partner that they like you and they go to add you on Facebook and they see that, that's a reflection of our organization. We can't have that. And so He thanked me and was thoroughly embarrassed, but I did look him up later and could not find him, and so that's positive. But that Facebook thing is something that we do check, and people can, even if they protect their pictures, they can be found if they protect their pictures. You don't want to see partying pictures of various degrees. We understand people are college students, we expect them to have a good time, but what are they projecting about themselves? So that's something. And then knowing how to we assign everybody a company email, and not forwarding on inappropriate things, thinking about what they do with their company email, that it is for work only. Texting at work is something else that we've had to say, you can't nonstop text. They're not used to having those kind of boundaries. And so those are things that no matter what institution an intern has come to us from, that we've had to really focus on, once we're in that process.
I think professionalism in general, and sometimes I think people think, well, Peace Corps is volunteer, but I mean, like, the second they contact me, I mean, I'm friendly and I'm personable, but I'm a potential employer, and so, starting out at their first contact with me in email, which happens a lot, hey, I was wondering, and don't have proper punctuation, really informal emails, even when they're just in the inquiry process. I mean, it gets noted in their file if they've had continued, really not professional conversations or professional interchanges, because they need to represent the U.S. and teach for a while in another country.
And a lot of times we'll get email responses where it's one big block of text. They don't know how to separate paragraphs and thoughts, and so and no capital letters. It's just like texting, except for in an email, and that's something else that we have to constantly remind students.
But those are always things to look at.
But they're not right into their system.
No, you want a digital footprint now.
Right, exactly.
So you understand it,
But it's what it looks like.
It's what it looks like.
Yeah, and the audience is targeted too. Any last questions?
We have till 9:30, don't we?
Yeah, we do. I just want to kind of be cognizant of time and things like that. I know another one that came through, and this is a question that we get here at Career Center, usually through students, sometimes from parents directly, and I would imagine that folks in departments and in the academic advising center get it as well. What advice or what would you tell a student whose parents are adamant that they not major in liberal arts and they take a more professional path? Some of the good things that you see, because obviously you've all mentioned that liberal arts students do well, that they bring transferable skills, that they rise to the top of your organization. So I'm not trying to compare business or engineering or tech or IT, but just what are some of the things that you see as desirable coming from that liberal arts major that may be helpful for parents to see?
I wouldn't necessarily be frightened of that background or degree anymore. I would just say you really got to complement it and vary it up. There's certs, there's things up in it that you can really add to your degree all the while you're in school nowadays that maybe weren't available even like 7 or 8 years ago.
So it's the inside and outside
it's the research, it's targeting internships while you're in those programs. It's stuff that's it's a networking aspect that traditionally liberal arts students we don't think of doing. And kind of being laissez-faire with that stuff. But those are the things that it's nothing to be terrified of. I mean, I was an English major myself. I don't think that analytical head of. There's no difference in me having a business situation I had to tackle, or a recruitment or a talent problem than ripping apart Virginia Woolf now. You know what I mean? It's just how you allocate it. And the expectations, though, when you do come into the working world, it's going to be completely different. You're not going to write the Great American Novel. You know what I mean? It's just peppering those, and it's still a great thing. There's so much stuff you can complement yourself with nowadays to make yourself more marketable. Because you're your own brand. I would say.
Very true.
And I think that, obviously emphasizing all the transferable skills that we've all listed, before as things that are important, but also that, a liberal arts degree also opens up possibilities in a way that if you have a very narrow degree, I mean, a lot of times as a freshman, sophomore, how many people really, they're still developing who they are and their personalities, and it allows them to go in a lot of different ways, where if they pick a very narrow degree and get into the junior year and decide that they aren't interested in that exactly, or they thought they were doing it because it was more marketable, there's different, I also just think that, people need to do what they're really interested in and they love, and they're gonna excel at that, and if they try and do something because they think it's a practical thing to do, it's also not gonna be so helpful. And it's all on how you market yourself, it's all on what you do to get some practical work experience and skills, so that you can make it be the best match for you. I mean, I always like to share a personal story too of, I was liberal arts and not, I was in education, but my passion was German teaching and international ed, but I was convinced, and my parents were convinced, I would not get a German teaching job. And so I added the English education, not that I didn't like it, but it wasn't really where my passion was, and the whole point was I gotta be marketable, and when it came time to get a job, there were only a few German jobs, but I was so highly qualified, and there weren't many people as qualified as I, and there weren't that big a pool applying for them. And when I went for an education English job, there were 300 people for every position. I didn't have the passion, and in the end, I had all these interviews and job offers for German, and none for the thing I took to be practical in the first place.
But that brings up a good point. I mean, you really, within your program, you can really start doing your research and refining, where you want to go and take that direct path. Once you put the focus on it, there's a lot clearer path.
I think there's so many different types of jobs that students, definitely understand. But when you're starting your job search or you're doing career exploration, you just think of jobs like teacher and accountant. I mean, you think of those jobs, but anymore, at our company, there's so many different types of jobs that you don't have to have a certain background for, but if you want to be successful and you can learn our business, and you have good research skills, and you're good with people, I mean, so many of those qualities are going to make you successful in so many roles that we have. And so I think I would really encourage students to really build up your resume while you're doing your liberal arts degree. Look at different internship opportunities, consider doing a minor, what can you be involved in? And I do agree, I think you should major in what you're interested in. I don't think, we all try to do the business route or the IT route or whatever. I know I would not have been able to do IT or accounting. I was an English major myself, and that's not for everybody. So I just think, definitely major in what you're interested in. I think you're going to do better in that. And especially with liberal arts, there's so many different directions you can go. Like Dave said, I think you have so much flexibility, and you can get into so many different fields at an entry level and build your career path in so many different ways. And now I'm in more of an HR and recruiting role, and English was my undergrad as well. And I really loved it. It's been a great career path to get to that point, and there's so many opportunities, I think, for those students. So just making sure that they're getting good experiences. Just be thinking, look at companies and think about, what do different companies need, or what type of industry do you want to be in? We really like when people if they're interested in helping people, the life insurance and retirement, those products are so impactful to people's lives. And so just thinking about, that type of stuff, and what industry might you be interested in where you could put your skills. Just think there's so many more opportunities than students might realize. So I really don't think parents would have to be concerned about if you're in liberal arts versus business. There's so many different ways to help the child.
I'd ask a student about their family members too, like their parents and aunts and uncles, and like how many if they got degrees, how many of them are in, like how many 40 and 50 and 60-year-olds are working in jobs that directly relate to the degree that they got, and how many of us stay with one career path that's exactly what we did in college.
All the same things that we say, but it's great to hear from all of you as well. Other questions out there? Kristen, go ahead.
I just had a question for you guys to see if you hire international students both for internships and full-time and within any liberal arts majors.
Another good question. because we have a growing international student population, and obviously that gets tricky with US.
Yeah. I think it's always a tricky area, I think, sometimes, where they're hiring stuff like that. Really doesn't come down to my group, it comes down to finance in the long run, and the costs associated with sponsorship, a lot of times,
We have had international student interns.
in terms of, yeah.
Yeah, we've had international student interns. We're not able to hire international students in accounting because we have a rotation program. We're not able to bring them on full time. But any of our other internships, we are able to hire international students. We have definitely done so in the past. On the full-time side, most of the positions that we're able to sponsor are going to be in more technical fields. So in like the IT or actuarial, that's where I see more of our, or maybe in like risk management, that's where I see that we're able to sponsor.
They're
So-
based more supply than there.
I think it's just, just the, if there's workers in America that can also do that
Right,
job,
yep.
So
It's harder to get.
it's harder to
approval
get,
that
harder to
you-
get
yeah,
sponsorship
yeah,
for those
for the government.
positions.
There's
Right.
probably some that go in, like, even those fields of IT and stuff, that sponsorship's gonna be more open, I think, to
Yeah.
employers as we move forward, just because of the shortage of people coming through those programs, to be honest with you.
For Peace Corps, it's a US government agency, and the requirement is you have to be a US citizen.
Good question. Or is there a lot, is there a lot of international students going on? Other questions out there? Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit more about the perception of studying abroad and how that's received by hiring organizations?
We love it. We think that it shows a level of leadership, of being able to step outside a comfort zone and experience more, to have some independence away from family and comfort zone and institution that you're used to as well. And so we think that it makes a person grow, and in the arts field, we really appreciate and embrace that. So we do look for that. We have that element of international art and music and culture that are brought into everything, and so sometimes those experiences can really help relate of something that they have seen or experienced abroad that we can bring into our festivals and events. So we really appreciate that.
I mean, obviously, for Peace Corps studying abroad, you don't have to have been out of the country to become a successful Peace Corps applicant. But obviously, if you're talking about experiences relating to other cultures, you're going to have a lot easier time coming up with examples if you've had a cross-cultural experience. But it does, just in general, teach you, when someone studied abroad, you know that they know what it's like to work with people who come from different backgrounds, that they have the ability to communicate with others and work with others who are different from them, and they're flexible, adaptable if they were successful in their study abroad experience. And for me, if I'm looking at, were they on a program with All-Americans, and did they associate with All-Americans at that time, or were they in a program where they had significant contact with the host community and the host culture? But it's definitely someone who's willing to take initiative, someone who's independent, who's flexible, adaptable, has language skills usually, and has cross-cultural abilities, and can have those experiences.
Yeah, I think we look at it from the standpoint, it's interesting to watch the standpoint, to find out what they were doing at the point, what they encountered, and cultural differences maybe they encountered, how they handled them.
Yeah, I think it looks really great on a resume as well. I would agree with what Dave said, and I think it just shows the students are willing to put themselves out there and try something new and take a risk. And I think it's just a great experience to, just see how different people live. And I'm a proponent of study abroad. I studied abroad when I was in college as well, and it was just such a great experience, and it just really opens up a student's mind to like how big the world is. And sometimes their world is like just where they're from or just their school, and they don't really think about like the global perspective. And I guess too, like just we're a very large and global company, and I just think if someone's had the global experience, you just realize that the world's a lot bigger than just where you go to school. And so yeah, I think there's a lot of positives that come out of study abroad, especially for any students with the liberal arts background.
students who, due to financial constraints, have to work a lot while they're in school. And of course, that then sacrifices some of the campus involvement and leadership positions. How do you view applicants who maybe work 30 hours a week while they were in school and don't have a resume that includes a lot of campus involvement?
I think it looks really good, honestly. I mean, when I would see that, the student needs to indicate in their bullet points, this is what I would look for, but if they're working 30, 35 hours a week, make that a bullet point and put it, I like to see it as a first bullet, like worked 30 hours a week and took a full class load. Because to me, if they just put the job, then I'm gonna assume that it's like 10 or 15 hours a week. I'm gonna be like, okay, part-time while you're in school, where's your other stuff? But if you're putting on there, worked 30 plus hours a week and took a full class schedule, you know, then I'm gonna think like, wow, that person, just like if I had seen all that other volunteer stuff, I'm gonna think the same things of, wow, like that person can manage their work schedule and then also handle their classes. I mean, I'm gonna think the same thing. I mean, I definitely understand that students may need to work while they're in school. I think as long as they're indicating the amount of time that they're working and also the skills that they're getting from that job. And even through a position, if you have to do a lot more focus on work, maybe trying to get more experience, like training people or if you supervise anyone, or if you can get into any type of assistant manager role, or even just trying to advance a little bit through that job to get more experience, that can kind of help, I think, with if they don't have as much time to do maybe the volunteer activities or, you know, so I think as long as that's coming through on the resume, that would help me.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing. A lot of times people have a tendency to discount their part-time work and skill sets they don't have. And they don't know how to project that in an interview either at the same time. And they really got to start thinking situational what they've picked up. I mean, every job's going to have a customer service component to it, but kids don't know how to project that into the position they're applying for, how that relates and stuff. So working on that and starting to figure that out, really projecting it on the resume is huge. But yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I've seen students too in their resumes having like financed 95% of my education while
Yeah,
working.
that would be good too.
You know, so those
Yeah,
types of
that's-
things, either under the education or the other part,
That
especially for the
completely
students who are putting
shows
themselves through
that
it.
they're hard
Or
workers.
putting that information also in the cover letter.
Yeah,
While
good call.
attending University of Iowa, I worked 30 hours a week with both, you know, and putting that there in that more narrative aspect where they can give more details about what kind of skills they picked up and have that also reflected on the resume, but in that more conversational aspect in the cover letter.
Yeah, and I think also, yeah, a lot of times we'll say, oh, well, my work experience, nothing relevant. And I'll be like, well, tell me what you did. And also, if you've held a job for a year, that shows us some commitment, you know, that also shows some commitment. But also, you know, thinking if there's certain things that they want to do, also what kind of job, if maybe branch out of what's the easiest job to get and trying to find a job that might be a little more in an area that they wish to gain work experience or more people-oriented type of position. And depending on what you want to do in the Peace Corps, you might need to fit in some volunteer. And I'll try and, you know, well, you have to work it in with what works with your life, but especially if they start early, you know, if they do it, if you're a senior and you want to apply tomorrow and you think it's going to be difficult, but if you're a sophomore, you know, working in, if you did an hour for 2 years of like tutoring somebody, it's really an hour, but you're going to be an impressive candidate for having done it that length of time and the number of hours you've accumulated altogether. So, you know, I also try and work with them like, well, what can we, you know, what can you fit in that's small, or, you know, what kind of positions can you look for that are paid? Like and like a lot of this, like some of the skill set that seem to require you for certain Peace Corps things, it can be paid or unpaid. So like, if, you know, can you make it into a paid work experience, or if you're an English major, can you work for the Writing Center, you know? Can you tutor through one of the different tutoring systems?
Even if you have a full-time job, or not full-time, if you have a job like that, you know, I think you could talk to your employer maybe about maybe making it a co-op experience, and then maybe then they can, for that semester, they can help you work on some more skills that might tie back into your major or something that you want to do. But I know that's just something that might be an option, is maybe doing co-op, you know, with their current job and seeing if they can gain more of those skills, even in their current position, if it's hard to do an internship or if it's hard to like really give up that position. you know, maybe they can work with they're a good employee and they're working that much and, you know, their manager or company may be willing to, you know, give them some more skills. So just asking the question never hurts.
Related to that, we sometimes have candidates who have a tight financial area that since our internships are unpaid, that they often can't accept an internship with us when they're the most qualified candidate because we're not paying. So that's when we're always encouraging them to take the internship for credit if possible, so that that's applying to their academic work. Or we make sure that we let people know that during the summertime they can absolutely keep working at another job while interning with us. And we try to say what hours can you work, and we will fit that into your schedule for what hours can you work with us. So if they can only work Fridays from 9 to 3 rather than coming in Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 2 hours at a time, we'll work with that student to make sure that they can get their employment in so that they can afford to live here in the summer if that's what they need to do as well.
And I think too, it's encourage them to work with the university for part-time roles.
Yeah.
It generally helps. They get a lot of interaction with a lot of different departments, and no matter what, if it's here in the career center or working like for us, like if I find a student that's working in enrollment or things of that nature, it generally they have a lot of interaction with different departments and stuff. There is some pay there is some stuff, and it does look impressive on a resume. I think for anybody as an employer. So.
Yeah, definitely on campus jobs are really
And it's tough for, like you were saying, with the financial ability to do an internship often if it is unpaid, it's tough. So, that's a good place to start in an interaction standpoint, right directly on campus a lot of times for positions.
And because our
Yeah, exactly. It does. It does transition a lot better maybe than your base retail or part-time job in that area.
And because our internships are unpaid, we try to make sure that we are doing things for those interns that are really going to be worth their time then to be spending that time with us. So they're developing professional skills. We invite them to attend at least one or more of our nonprofit board meetings so they can see how a board works. We invite them, instead of coming to our hours for a day, to contact one of our board members and go job shadow or go out to coffee or lunch or something and find another mentor in the community, somebody else that can be a reference or open a door for them, because as we all know, it's not always what you know, but who you know, so that you can get that door open and do what you know. And so the networking has been one of the most valuable things. We take interns along with us to meetings where they might not be contributing to that meeting, but we're introducing them to people. They're seeing how that meeting takes place. And we are actually in process of putting together a Where Are They Now booklet of our interns. And we've created a Facebook page because they have alumni classes of each year, and they often get together for little reunions, and they are emailing us and saying, we have a job available at our company. So we're making this Facebook page so that they can help each other and also build that network. So we try to make those, even though they're not getting paid, have some additional benefits that are going to be extremely valuable for them in getting a job shortly after interning.
In regards to interviews, are there particular questions that you see students struggle with, or other suggestions that you have that we can pass along to help students better prepare for the interview process?
The Peace Corps interview, and what I've heard several people say, is pretty behavioral based, which means they're asking for specific situations. They don't want to just say what you generally do or think. They're going to ask, tell us about a stressful situation you've been in and how you coped with it. Tell us about a time when you had to work on a team. Tell us about a time, they want, so really thinking about, what kinds of things do they think they're going to be asked, what kinds of skills do they have, and then examples and situational examples going in.
And probably practicing those out loud, so it doesn't end up being a big, long, wandering narrative.
No, and that's where people get caught,
Yep.
and then you lose your train of thought, and I mean, we probably still do it full time. That situations are always like that, so it's good to have a bank of situations, not only written down for practice, and then it's there, and then you're not getting in a good situation too,
And thinking of those categories, like what's an example of an experience with leadership or conflict management
Yeah.
or supervision or having to do something even though you knew you were right, doing it the way that somebody else is telling you to do it because that's what they're saying to do. Just having those examples, and a lot of times we'll ask a question like, tell us about a time that you overcame a challenge or something like that, and they'll sit there and they'll go, well, I don't know if this is too personal, but, and so making sure that those examples aren't overly personal. I mean, sometimes they're applicable, but sometimes they're just really not. And so keeping it more something that could apply to that job rather than having that answer, not having to go there
Exactly.
when that's not where they.
Not more generic in the way you present it. Obviously, they're looking for persons, but when you bring up the personal, a lot of times that's where people flood up too, because you get caught in that, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, I just revealed something about my character, which is what the whole point of being situation.
And successful experiences.
Yeah.
Sometimes students start out telling you about a particular experience and then, so I just did the whole project myself, and you're like, okay, that wasn't a good example of how you dealt with a challenging team situation, So, but I got an A, so like, make sure it's a successful example of when they start on a road of
And I would say just making sure it's a specific example, because so many times I feel like I hear the same story from so many people, especially like teamwork. It's like, well, we were working on a project and these people didn't want to help, so I talked to them and we ended up getting an A. I mean, I've heard that story so many times, and it's, I don't know, it's like making it a specific example and not a general example, Because that's really, I think, what makes you stand out, is those specific stories, rather than kind of a general story that, a lot of people probably have that experience, but focusing on what they did in a situation. I think we also like to, we like to ask about ambiguous situations where you're not given all the instructions. That's a big question that we like to ask, because in the workplace, you're not going to be given all the instructions like maybe in school. So that's a question that we like. I think just also reviewing the job description, because in the qualifications, responsibilities too, but in the qualifications, especially if it says strong teamwork, we're probably going to ask a question about teamwork. So just use the qualifications, because that is going to tell you what questions you're most likely going to be asked. So just look at what are they looking for, because that's where we're getting our questions from. So you can almost kind of get a really good idea of what the questions will be before you even go in there.
Research, for Peace Corps, talk to a lot of different people who've done the Peace Corps, look at the YouTube videos, look at the blogs, make sure you understand the experience. If you, in an answer to a question, show you have no idea what you've applied for, that's, you don't know what you're getting into, who knows if you're prepared.
If we have a candidate for our marketing intern position come and they haven't even looked at our website, that's one of the first questions we ask is, have you looked at our website? What did you see on our website that you liked? Or and they're like, well, I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. And their interview's been scheduled for 2 weeks. There's really no excuse for that. Something else that we ask them is, what do they think an intern's role is in a company or an organization? And the answers we get are all over the board, because sometimes they've never had experience with an internship and they just have seen it in the movies, or their sister or brother had one, or their roommate, or they think it's getting coffee and filing papers or answering the phone. So we ask that not as a test, but so that we know where they're coming from, where they're at. The answer that we get the most often is to do whatever we're told. And that was not what we're looking for, because we want them to learn while they're there. We want them to be able to take the experience that they get with us, and be able to sit in the next interview, whether it's for another internship or a full-time job, and be proud of the work that they learned and the projects that they led, and what they contributed to our organization, to be able to move them on to the next level. And so, we don't disqualify for somebody for a bad answer in that question, but it lets us know where their thinking process is at, and then we can even move them along from there.
Yeah, but have them come here to service. It's huge. They get an opportunity to go into employers throughout, emotional. I love coming to the box up here because, you get a full 45 an hour and you're going to grill them hopefully a little bit to get them used to that, so they are prepped for it. You're not going to get anywhere without that. Right. It's just not there, so.
Yeah, definitely do the mock interviews. I think that's such an awesome opportunity. We love coming down to do them and having them meet with multiple employers, because different people notice different things, companies are different.
Yeah, because you're gonna encounter 1,000 different personalities playing
Yeah.
your job. You know, you're gonna encounter the people who can't interview themselves or stone. That's a very hard, you know, and then you're gonna have a more open environment, you know, more conversational. So it's good to get that practice and variety out there with the
It's a
professionals.
skill, you kind of have to build the muscle.
Yeah,
to be able to
yeah.
go through it.
And those entry level ones are always gonna be the worst, you know. I mean, you only get good as you practice, that's the
Yeah.
problem.
Well, I don't know, but Peace Corps has now moved to an all web or phone-based interview centralized system, so maybe getting some experience trying to do it when you're not sitting face to face, which maybe is easier for today's generation than it would be for me. But, you know, knowing that that's the situation.
We have a tool in our industry where students can use web, and they can practice that, and they can look it over with an advisor or practice on their own.
Still have phone
So,
interviews too, you know, and those are tough too.
And Summer of the Arts right now has about 12 internship opportunities available starting January 1st, going through the end of September. So if you have students who are looking for internships right now, we generally are accepting those resumes and doing our interview process. We try to have everybody hired before winter break and do our orientation. And then they can come right back after winter break and get started. So please send people our way because we are looking.
Well, we are at that magical time where we hit an hour and a half, so to try and keep with our plans and keep everyone on schedule, we're going to wrap up unless there's any last really burning quick questions. Ainsley?
As quickly as you can, I know it's a slightly hard question. What kind of environment and support your organizations provide for traditionally underrepresented students, such as students of color or members of the LGBT community?
For Peace Corps, it's a huge priority we're representing the United States and these other countries, and it's a huge priority that the Volunteer Corps reflects all of the diversity of the United States. Because two of the three goals are about cross-cultural understanding, and one of them is about having, people getting to know the United States, and so that means getting to know the full diversity of the United States, and so there is a lot of effort and support and mentorship for people of all backgrounds to consider the Peace Corps and connecting them with other people who've done it in similar backgrounds so they can feel that it's, they can get that kind of information about what it's like. Any other comments on this?
Having some diversity training, honestly, to a lot of the hiring managers or all the whole base employees, part of their training overall.
Diversity and inclusion is going to be as we're restructuring HR right now, it's going to be a branch of our HR. So we have a person who is over that diversity range. We're also planning to manage our program manager within diversity. We also have a network, LGBT network, diversity network that was started in America just later than the last couple of months. We also have a Chinese student network, or women's network, so employee networks that we're involved in. So I do think that, especially as we get that program manager for diversity, that we'll be seeing more training.
And diversity is represented so much in the arts and what we do that we're really always looking for interns to join us that represent any of those backgrounds. And we don't have the great big HR departments and everything that some of the other folks do here, but we are going specifically to career job fairs, volunteer fairs, and making sure that we're welcoming to everybody.
Great. Well, how about a round of applause for